Here's lovely Sarah Hawkins. Good morning, gorgeous.
Hello. How
Good.
are you guys?
Hello. Great, thank you. Sean, I don't think you've met Sarah before.
We've not,
I think she's one of the ones that you haven't met before.
Yes.
It's nice to meet you.
How are you? You well?
Yeah, I'm good. Just a little bit like anxious. I've spoken to Sonia a couple of times, but I feel like this is something that's quite big. So yeah.
It is. Don't be anxious. You don't need to worry about anything. Sarah Hawkins, of course, she's a doula. She's also a mother of twins. She's also a kick-ass individual. And she was on a Friday Rise earlier this year. She was talking about the inhumanity of twin studies. You know, the fact that the Nazis loved them is a fairly good indicator of what we're dealing with. And she's really back not only to update on her findings, but also to sort of continue to illuminate this scenario. And Sarah will be returning to us again, hopefully with some mothers who have experienced what we are going to be talking about today. So thank you so much for doing a breakdown of your key concerns, because it's really interesting stuff. So let's look at this. When you say, give people a brief background of in case they missed you being on before, what is your problem with twin studies?
Well, twin studies was the brainchild of Sonia Poulton, who came up with eugenics, and we all know what eugenics has done. So it is the hangover of eugenics. It is the last acceptable form of eugenics that we've got, and it is the use of twins in studies, clinical and medical studies. And in the UK, a country that is in my experience, has always spoken as though they really care about human rights. They have a register of 15,000 twins to be used in twin studies. And when we only have 6,000 sets of twins born a year, that is a large number. It's big business. Twins are born, like I have identical twins, and they are called a unique epidemiological tool. And then unidentical twins or fraternal twins are considered the natural group. And if I give you an example of, if you go into Google Scholar, for the year 2021 to 2022, there was like 23,000 studies on twin studies, and there was only 1,600 studies on anything that benefited twin pregnancy.
And that's the real issue, really. Now you're starting to crack down right there. There are real issues here about twin pregnancies, right? And I mean, some of the stuff that you'd sent me, I was like, what? Because you show me like quite serious links between the charities and the problems that are occurring. Talk us through that.
So a lot of the major charities that have been created to support twins and their families have strong ties and affiliations with organizations that have been created for twin studies. So there is the ISTS, which is the International Society for Twin Studies, and they started a club called the iCombo, which is a group of, from what I can see, very, comfortable white middle-class women from the suburbs of Melbourne who are making decisions about how twin studies should be conducted. Now, around the world, so
can you just break down what twin studies are for me? Because
okay.
I'm going to try and come from the audience, because
cool.
Okay, so twin studies, they use twin studies because they can, so it might be easier to look at it like this. So Sonia Poulton came up with eugenics and twin studies, and twin studies he thought were good because you would have two twins or two people who are so alike and that have been raised in the same household, that to study them and to see how they cope in different situations would give you an indication on how they would cope psychologically or physically. So then he inspired the Nazis and Joseph Mengele with all of his twin studies at Auschwitz, and then John Money in America, who did gender studies on twins. He did a botched circumcision on an identical twin boy, and told his parents to raise him as a girl. That was in the 80s. Both those twins died by suicide. There was another guy called Peter Neubauer in America in the 70s and the 80s, and he separated twins and triplets. There's a documentary on Netflix called Three Identical Strangers, and on YouTube there's one called Two Identical Strangers. So they would separate these children without the parents knowing, put them into different families, and they would go and see them every year and study them to see how they coped.
Wow.
So now we have huge databases of twins for the purposes of twin studies. So now if you look at the one in the UK, which I sent Sonia the link to, which I can give you again, there is 15,000 participants in a range of studies, from the effects of alcoholism, diet, smoking, aging. They use them in COVID studies, but it's not just adults that are putting themselves forward to do that. Adults are putting their children forward to participate in these studies because it's the consent argument. And so, you know, it is worrying to me because, you know, I have 4 children, 2 of whom are twins, and I know that my twins have a value on their head that the singletons don't, because you know how much money research makes. You know, you can get huge research grants. So yeah, that's basically the backstory of twin studies.
It's an important backstory, because actually what you've managed to home in on there is the absolute dehumanization. These children are treated like subjects, which we're not supposed to do anymore in psychological studies, but it seems to have bypassed the issue of twin studies. They're literally commodities to be experimented on to see if it's replicated through nature or nurture or whatever it is. So, and you touched upon the very serious, distinct lack of diversity. And we know there's a problem in psychology when you look at everything through the prism of white middle-class people, because that's just not the world, right?
Yeah. And in the world, white women account for less than 20% of twin pregnancy. So but what we see is, if you have a look at, you know, big organizations that support twins, they're mostly white. So the vast majority of twins come from the west coast of Africa or southern Asia. So how can all these white people who are affluent and doing well off make decisions that affect 80% of people that don't have the same resources, and when they can't understand them, they're not invited into the conversation, and if they are, their voice isn't heard.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's been this way all the way down the line. I mean, a little known fact, I'm sure people don't realize this, but like, for example, this kind of bias, not involving twins, but you know, the hospital gowns, they were designed for men, not for women, which is why there's always a problem with the gaps doing them up, because they were designed for men. And so that's an example of what happens when you look at things far too narrow. It doesn't fit the rest of the population and can't possibly inform anything other than your white middle class view. And this is some people, when I go on about this, they're like, oh, why you hate white people so much? I don't hate white people. You've had a good look at me lately, right? I mean, come on now. So, but the thing is, what I think is really interesting, Sarah, well, it's all interesting, but this is a very real issue at the maternity level, isn't it? And it's really problematic. The trauma of women, which is what we kind of talked about at the top, that's a very serious issue that needs to be addressed pronto, right?
Yeah, for sure. So stillbirth of twins went up 19% in 2020, and there was an Embrace report, and the Embrace report spoke about racial disparities. So Black women are 5 times more likely to suffer or die in the NHS, and twins have an increased risk of death. And there is an organisation in the UK, am I able to say?
Yes, go for it.
Okay. is called the Twins Trust. And the Twins Trust has been around for 40 years. And I went through their accounts and I looked at various, and I had various people look at it, including a banker. And they are raising huge amounts of money and not putting it back into the NHS in any meaningful way. Only money that is controlled. So that is money that has been donated to them for the purposes of something. So they can't spend it on anything else. The majority of their income is spent on staff costs. And then everything that, and it's a charity, and everything that they
same
offer,
old story, every charity, right?
and everything that they offer families, they charge them for. Even a discount card, you know, so they get small discounts. If you see a discount on the Twins Trust website and you go on Google, you'll find a better discount for the same, you know, business. But they have strong ties with all these organizations that I've spoken to you about in, you know, twin studies. And they're also pushing for zygosity testing, which is testing to see whether or not the twins are identical or not. There is no benefit to knowing whether or not your twins are identical, unless they have some medical complication or they need a transplant or something like that.
Right.
And there is, you know, they are creating registries, and so we've got, and they've set up, well, a group of various charities and organizations set up twins clinics all over the country. Now, as a doula, I support a lot of twins, and people come to me all the time who have suffered loss or coercion or abuse within the NHS. And these twin clinics are not fit for purpose. You can take a job, you can apply for a job as a twin specialist obstetrician with no specialist background. You can go for a job as a twin specialist midwife with no twin specialist background. And what we have is a triad where you've got the midwife, the doctor, and the sonographer, right? The GMC and the NMC are both legislative bodies. The only person in that triad, and the pregnant woman's in the middle, the only person in that triad that is not duty bound by any legislation is the sonographer. And the GMC and the NMC code doesn't say you can't go for a job that you can't do. It says that if you cannot do something, if you're not competent to do something, you must defer to somebody else. And they always defer to the sonographer.
Right.
So if there is an issue, there's no backlash for the doctor or the midwife.
Yeah, it's awful. It's literally, I mean, we hear this story over and over and over again. Responsibility is removed from people. And obviously, so your solution is, you're saying we need to create an entirely new organization that would be much better placed to, you know, examine the lived experience of twins and really kind of get rid of the last remnants of eugenics, as you say. What do you have in mind?
I would like to start a new charity or a new organization that primarily places the focus on what actually benefits twins, not how twins can benefit the world. Right. So that would be looking into conditions that affect twins in utero. So twins that share a placenta have got a high incidence of developing complications. We need to understand more about that, or we need to focus on what we already know about that. But because research now is such a money-hungry animal,
that's the
that
problem.
What we're doing is we are creating new research, and it is just bumping down the good value research.
Yes.
It replaced with this research that's been done, you know, really, really quickly.
Yes.
So I would like to start a new organization that is focused on improving the lived experience of twins and their families worldwide. I do not understand how the UK is able to have a registry of twins for the purposes of twin studies when the Helsinki Act says that vulnerable groups must be protected.
Oh, important note to end on there, Sarah. Come back with your mothers, right? See, look, you did no reason to be anxious at all. You articulate that beautifully for us all.
Incredibly well.
You don't speak too soon, because I've had threats already, so I'm expecting it.
Oh,
no.
Send them my way, mate. Tell them to come to me. I'll sort them out. Listen, everybody, Sarah Hawkins, I'm going to put her Instagram handle in the show notes.
Please.
Yes, I will.
You can find me. Yeah, come find me. Thank you so much, Sonia.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Honestly, thank you so much.
Lovely to see you.
Bye-bye.
God bless that woman. Wonderful. I tell you what, I wouldn't have minded her at my birth. I'd have been more than happy to have her.